Here's something that sounds completely backwards, but is rock-solid science. The more you stress these 10 herbs with sun, heat, and dry soil, the better they taste. Pamper them with rich soil and constant watering, and you will end up with bland, floppy plants that would not earn a second glance from a chef. May is the moment when this magic kicks into gear, because the soil has finally warmed to that sweet spot of 60 to 70 degrees. The last frost is a memory, and every herb on this list is genetically wired to thrive in exactly the conditions that are heading your way. Over the next few minutes, you are going to learn the 10 herbs that belong in your garden right now, why heat actually concentrates their flavor instead of ruining it, and the small mistakes that quietly kill these plants before they ever hit their stride. Get these in the ground this week, and you will be harvesting fragrant, oil-rich leaves all summer long. Let's start with the undisputed king of summer herbs, basil. Ocimum basilicum is the plant that practically defines warm weather cooking, and there is a reason it shows up in everything from pesto to Thai curries. Basil hits its peak photosynthetic rate at around 86 degrees Fahrenheit, which is why it sulks in cool spring weather and then suddenly explodes the moment summer arrives. Give it 6 to 8 hours of sun and well-drained soil that stays evenly moist, and it will reward you with leaves stacked thick on every stem. There is one catch though. Push past about 100 degrees and basil starts to struggle, so if you live somewhere brutally hot, plant it where it gets a break from harsh afternoon sun. Pinch off any flower buds the second you spot them, because once basil bolts, it shifts energy away from leaf production and the flavor turns bitter. Here is the part that surprises most home gardeners. Studies have shown that heat-stressed basil actually produces higher levels of phenolics, flavonoids, and anthocyanins, the compounds responsible for its complex aroma. Translation: your homegrown basil will leave the supermarket version in the dust. Next up is rosemary, the Mediterranean survivor that looks at a drought and sees a vacation. Salvia rosmarinus evolved on rocky, sun-baked hillsides where rainfall is rare and the soil drains in seconds, so trying to grow it in a rich, soggy garden bed is a fast track to a dead plant. Root rot from overwatering kills more rosemary plants than any pest, disease, or cold snap combined. What makes this herb fascinating is what happens at the molecular level when you let it go a little dry. Drought stress actually upregulates the expression of terpene synthase genes, meaning the plant cranks out more of those resinous, aromatic oils as a survival response. Rosemary is also rich in carnosic acid and rosmarinic acid, two compounds with documented anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects. Plant it once in a sunny, gravelly spot, and it will keep giving you woody, fragrant sprigs for years. But there is a subtle technique I will get to at the end that doubles your harvest, so stick around for that. Oregano is the third herb on your planting list, and it punches well above its weight. Oreganum vulgare is a tough perennial that absolutely loves heat and despises wet feet. The compound that gives oregano its signature bite is called carvacrol, and in some species it can make up as much as 75% of the essential oil. That's an extraordinary concentration, and it explains why oregano shows up so often in research papers on antibacterial and antioxidant compounds. Newer studies are even pointing to thymol and carvacrol as activators of autophagy, the cellular cleanup process, with possible roles in heat stress resistance. Plant it where the sun beats down all day, give it lean soil, and resist the urge to coddle it. The hungrier and thirstier oregano gets, within reason, the more potent those leaves become. Speaking of thymol, that brings us straight to thyme, the drought-resistant workhorse of any serious herb garden. Thymus vulgaris is hardy all the way down to zone 5, which means it sails through winters that would obliterate more delicate plants. Its essential oil can hit 40% thymol, the same antiseptic compound you will find in mouthwashes and natural cleaning products. What is beautiful about thyme is how it responds to challenging weather. Researchers studying drought-stressed thyme have documented species-specific shifts in secondary metabolites, which is the scientific way of saying that a thirsty plant simply tastes stronger. Tuck it along walkways, between stepping stones, or in containers where it gets full sun, and let the soil dry between waterings. Sage might be the most underappreciated herb of the bunch, and it's a true heat reflector. Salvia officinalis has those characteristic velvety silver-green leaves, and that color isn't decorative. The pale fuzz literally bounces sunlight and reduces heat absorption, which is why sage looks unbothered while other plants wilt at noon. Recurrent mild drought has been shown to elevate eucalyptol and alpha-pinene in the leaves, two compounds that contribute to that warm, almost piney flavor. Sage is reliably perennial in zones 5 through 9, and a single plant will produce far more than most households can use. Cut it back hard after it flowers to encourage a bushier shape and more tender new growth. Number 6 is lavender. And yes, even though we tend to think of it as ornamental, it earns its place on this list as both a culinary and pollinator attracting heavyweight. Lavandula angustifolia, the English variety, is the most cold-tolerant and the most popular for cooking. Drought stress actually increases the essential oil content and pushes up linalool levels, the compound responsible for lavender's signature soothing aroma. Planted in full sun, in soil that drains so fast you can practically hear it. Wet clay is a death sentence, and overwatering will kill more lavender plants than any winter. Once established, lavender becomes a magnet for bees, butterflies, and even hummingbirds, turning the corner of your garden into a humming, fluttering production all summer long. Now we shift gears into the tropicals, starting with lemongrass. Cymbopogon citratus loves the kind of hot, humid weather that makes other plants gasp, and it will grow into a 3 to 4 foot fountain of aromatic stalks if you give it room. The lower stalks are what you cut for Thai, Vietnamese, and Indonesian cooking, but lemongrass has a hidden party trick. It contains citronellol, the same compound used in mosquito-repellent candles, so a clump near your patio doubles as a natural pest deterrent. The catch with lemongrass is that it is not frost-hardy. In cooler zones, dig up a clump in fall, pot it, and bring it inside for the winter. By spring, you will have a free start, ready to go back outside. Here is an herb most gardeners have never heard of, and it might be the most heat-tolerant plant in this entire video. Cuban oregano, technically Plectranthus amboinicus, is not actually a true oregano. It is a succulent-leaved cousin that stores water in fleshy, fragrant foliage, and it shrugs off heat that would crisp other herbs. The flavor is intense, somewhere between oregano and thyme, with a peppery edge. A little goes a long way in soups, stews, and bean dishes. It is tropical and tender, so treat it as an annual, or bring it indoors before frost. As a bonus, it produces beautiful spikes of pink, white, or purple flowers that look gorgeous spilling out of a container. Number 9 solves a problem every hot climate gardener has run into. French tarragon hates summer heat and tends to melt by July. The fix is Mexican mint marigold, Tagetes lucida, which delivers that same anise and licorice flavor, but absolutely thrives in weather with temperatures above 90 degrees. The leaves go straight into béarnaise sauces, vinegars, or chicken dishes, and the small golden flowers are edible too, making them a pretty addition to summer salads. It reseeds reliably, which means one plant this year often gives you several volunteers next spring with zero effort on your part. Finally, ginger. You might not think of Zingiber officinale as a backyard herb, but it grows beautifully if you give it warmth and moisture. Plant a plump, healthy rhizome from the grocery store, about 1 inch deep in rich, well-drained soil. Within weeks, you will see lush green shoots emerging. Ginger appreciates dappled shade once temperatures climb above 90, and it does exceptionally well in containers, which makes it perfect for patios. Harvest in fall by digging up the rhizomes. In cooler zones, bring a pot indoors to keep the plant going through winter. Fresh, homegrown ginger tastes brighter and more pungent than anything you have bought at the store. So how do you put all this together without turning your garden into a chaotic mess? Here is the trick that quietly separates great herb gardens from frustrating ones. The Mediterranean group, rosemary, oregano, thyme, sage, and lavender all want exactly the same conditions: blazing sun, sharp drainage, and light watering. Plant them together in one bed or in shared containers, and you can ignore them for days at a time without consequence. The tropicals, lemongrass, Cuban oregano, Mexican mint marigold, and ginger prefer richer soil and more consistent moisture, so group those separately. Basil sits in its own category, happiest with steady water but the same hot sun. Mulch lightly to keep soil temperatures stable, but always keep mulch pulled back from woody stems to prevent rot. Pinch and harvest constantly, because the act of cutting is what triggers each plant to push out more leaves. And remember the through line that connects every herb on this list: stress equals flavor. Don't pamper them, don't over-fertilize, don't drown them with kindness. Let the sun do its work, let the soil dry between waterings, and trust the science that a slightly thirsty plant is a more delicious one. Get these 10 herbs in the ground this week, and by midsummer, you will have a fragrant, productive garden that practically takes care of itself. Try planting just 2 or 3 of them this season if you are new to herbs, see which ones become your favorites, and let your garden tell you what it wants more of next year.